Hi everyone, welcome to my 2025 Tokyo Marathon race recap. I finished writing this out yesterday and I'm waiting for the pictures to share this on my Instagram, but also I encourage you to chime in and ask me questions. I do find that it is very valuable to share these types of recaps live. I'll also be sharing this on my podcast, and I hope that you could find some value in this. It's a great race. I just want to leave it or start with that. It's a really, really good race and definitely one that I recommend anyone does. So regardless of the conditions you're faced up against, we roll with the punches and we do what we can with what we've got. So, I'm going to go over my 5-page recap. Feel free to ask questions. I will stop after each section. I want to go over the pre-race prep, the race morning, the race mile by mile or kilometer by kilometer, some post-race reflections, final thoughts and takeaways, and lessons for next time. Let's kick it off. Training. Some key workouts for me that were really, really beneficial heading into this marathon were the longer aerobic sessions for me, which included long runs up to 22 miles to get that time on feet and to keep those more zone 3 for me, not zone 2, because I've done the zone 2 training when I was initially going for 302, sub 3 for the first time. And so in order to get a different result, you gotta do something different, and there's a time and a place for everything. Also working on my anaerobic threshold. So a lot of people know this is LT2. So doing a lot of that type of work, whether that was through cruise intervals meaning like a staple that we all know, 3x2 repeats, with, shorter jogging rests to break up that work at your anaerobic threshold, 10 to 30 seconds per mile faster than 5K race pace, for those of you that kind of don't know what that is. And those longer tempos. So tempos at anaerobic threshold without any breaks, sandwiched between easy miles within long runs. The purpose of doing those key workouts was to improve my stamina endurance, or in other words, my ability to hold a higher fraction of my mile pace for 26.2 miles. So the target now, I'll just share with you, for Sunday was initially 2 hours and 52 minutes, or around there, which would have been, closer to a 6:36 pace on average. And we didn't get it, and that's okay. And I just, want to preface this by saying that it's important to not put so much pressure on one race and just to adjust as you go. I think it's a really wonderful skill to have, and there's so many good, valuable things to be said for that. And it's also a great thing to be able to pull from your toolbox of knowledge on race day and literally in the race. So this is all pre-race. Tapering strategy. So I didn't have a crazy taper. I was around peaking 70 to 80 miles a week. Took a 2-week taper, arrived to Tokyo this Sunday prior to the race. I highly recommend to anyone traveling internationally, especially with a 14-hour to a 17-hour time difference from San Diego and New York, to give yourself a week at least to acclimate to the time change. But not only that, your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm, it gets really thrown off. And so obviously, circadian rhythm, meaning when your body is exposed to sunlight, let's say first thing in the day, it's very familiar with waking up and going to bed at the same time. But like even when you're changing to a different time zone, when you're waking up and going to bed on that time zone, it's going to throw that circadian rhythm off from where you were prior to that travel, if that makes sense. So that jet lag is gonna, you're gonna feel it for a little. So I know that we all don't have like the luxury to go a week ahead of time, but you can plan, you can do this, and you can make a vacation out of it almost, like I kind of did. And if you have a remote job, great. If you don't, you can make a trip out of this and like use your vacation days. And if you want to race a world major, I would say go a week ahead of time, especially if it's in Tokyo, and you're coming from the US, because that's a big time zone difference. And if you're not, and if you're just going because you want to get your 6-star, which is amazing, that's a different goal. And it might be okay to go closer to the race. So, yes, in terms of tapering, carb loading, I just want to say I progressively increased my amount of carbs, and proteins and fats 2 weeks leading into the marathon. I tried to replicate what I was eating on race day, but it's really hard to do that when you are in a foreign country. So sticking to simple carbs, actually, white rice is technically a simple carb. There's iron and B12 in it, but it doesn't have a lot of fiber. So like white rice, a great go-to. Eggs, a great go-to. Noodles, a great go-to. If you eat beef or sushi, that's a good go-to. But I wouldn't dabble with all of the other stuff, because it's just, you don't want to eat things that are unfamiliar to you on race day. So if you're drinking orange juice or like grape juice, those are great simple carbs. Simple carbs, think of like things that you just easily digest. There's like not a lot of fiber. So sticking to those basic staples, heading up, towards race day, 2 weeks out, keeping the frequency the same, is what I'd recommend. Now, there was 7-Elevens all over, and like the 7-Elevens, Fortunato's is on here, and Fortunato's, I'm in town and I'm gonna come see you soon. Hey, but no, you're not gonna get rainbow cookies like Fortunato's on here, but you will find that there are some, goodies in the 7-Eleven in Tokyo that you are familiar with. Like I did mention on my live with Roberto last week, rice balls. There are some cookies. They're not as good as the US, full disclosure. But you don't, just keep eating the things that you're familiar with anyway. You know what those are. Any questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace about tapering nutrition. All right, so gear. I race in the Vaporfly 2%, the Nike Vaporfly 2s. Those have always been my go-to race shoe in the marathon. I love them. You could really only get them online, because they came out with like the Vapor 3s now, whatever. To each their own, right? I love them. They're what work. I wore my Rabbit race shorts, my Nike 3/4 bra, which I'm extremely chafed, by the way. I will show you guys in a little. That's for later on. We could blame the aluminum gels on that one. Yes, throughout the race, I took 11 Morton gels. So to put that into perspective for you, I trained my stomach to intake a lot of carbohydrate before this. I didn't just like toe the line and say, hey, I feel like intaking 275 grams of carbohydrate throughout this 2 hour and 57 minute marathon, because that's what I felt like doing. No, I trained my gut to do that throughout my training. So when I say consistency is the game's name, I mean it. So that, and going into the race, I trained with a handheld that had 1,000 milligrams of Element. This is not an ad for any brand. And there were no handhelds allowed, just as a protocol on this course. So don't tell on me, but I might have had a little 250 milliliter handheld with element in it, but that only lasted me for so long. So my advice to you is for Tokyo, like I know that they ran out of water towards the runners that were like running, 3 hours and 45 minutes to 5 hours and so forth, which is unacceptable, but it is what it is. I really hope the world majors change that, because it's actually dangerous to have people running without any fuel or water, especially on a day like Sunday. It was wild. Travel in the expo. So I went to the expo on Thursday evening. I would actually recommend going on Thursday evening. I know Jamie, you're on here. A lot of people went on Thursday morning when it opened, and everyone went to get the race jackets and so forth. But I know it was also really crowded. I went with 2 athletes that I'm coaching on Thursday, and it was like, we were like in and out, like boom. And I personally don't like to just be in expos for that long anyway, because they could be really exhausting, especially when you're in a foreign country and city. So Thursday evening was pretty clutch. Was there for 2 hours because we were just kind of talking, reminiscing, and then my father arrived in Tokyo on Thursday night, and I wanted to get back to him to see him. So yeah, was there for 2.5 hours and then dipped. Race day morning, we're getting to it. So Tokyo, the marathon started at 9-10 a.m., it was Saturday night here, so it was 14 hours ahead of here. I got about 8 hours of sleep, and I had pancakes from 7-Eleven, which, with syrup, simple carbs, grape juice, simple carbs, some coffee. I had water with some electrolytes in there. And yeah, it was a hot day. The race started at 55 degrees. So I personally really, really enjoy running in colder weather than that. It's very, very hard to kind of race a marathon when it's 55 degrees inching up to 70 degrees later in the race, because you lose so much electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium, just all the things. Yeah, it's tough, especially when it's sunny, but we can't control those things. And so it's important to kind of like adjust as we go, as I said. And just do your self-prep talk. So race day morning, I was really just hyping myself up, prepping myself up. I wrote "believe" on my forearm, and I was ready to go. Walked to the entrance around 7:45 a.m. And went through security, didn't check a bag because my dad was holding my bag, and all I had to do was focus on running. Went through security, put my 11 Morton gels in my sports bra. Now, you're not allowed to throw away trash, not like you should, but you're really not allowed to throw away trash on the streets in Tokyo, because you could get arrested for it. They're very, very strict. It's a very clean city. And so that being said, I was putting my empty gels into my sports bra, and it chafed me really bad. And I'm just going to show you guys, not to scare you, but like lesson learned, don't do that. It's kind of like, bad. So I'm putting Neosporin on that right now, but it's tough. What I would recommend is doing a better job than I did at finding the trash receptacles on the course, because I just tried to like kind of keep them on me, the empty like gel wrappers, until I couldn't. So as I mentioned, it was hot. Security was super easy. Throwaway clothes, they had bins. It was easy to just toss those in the bins. I was in Corral C, and that was my experience in Corral C. It wasn't as crowded as like Berlin, which had about 20 more thousand runners, which was kind of nice, but it was crowded. Now let's dive into the race. So the race, gun went off. I went out at a conservative pace. cruising at a 7:01 pace, and then locked into my 6:25 to 6:35 pace. Which I had planned to maintain. I was nursing some electrolytes. I had planned to see my dad to give me 2 bottles. Don't get me in trouble for this at miles 10 and 19 because I didn't really have any electrolytes on me besides like 2 salt tabs that I had, which I had trained for previous marathons. And there was Pocari Sweat in the course. Pocari Sweat has 100 milligrams of sodium in each like thing. And they were also in cups. So it was probably less than that. And for those of you who don't lose a lot of sodium when you run, that's okay. For those of you that do, I feel sorry for you like me, but not really. It's gonna hurt a little bit later on in the race. So the first like portion of the race, mile by mile, it was great. The weather was really awesome. I want to say there was like a gap in runners that opened up around mile 3, and I was kind of in my rhythm, leveraging the water stations and the crowd. The crowd was pretty cool. People were yelling in Japanese. I would recommend to really heavy up on water on that course. If they don't change the handheld policy, especially, I saw several runners being handed handhelds, and good for them. But for everyone that didn't have that, it was rough. It was rough out there. So, not to get too into the science here, but I just like want to explain like the reason why hydration is so important. So first of all, shout out to Precision Hydration. I got a sweat test back in October, and I found out that I lost about 1,300 milligrams per liter of water. And so I had been practicing with my 18 fluid ounce handheld throughout my training, throughout the Houston half marathon, where I almost ran a 2-minute half PR, like using this new hydration strategy, and it really worked for me. So not having these tools with me on the course, these were uncontrollables, but it's a challenge that we have to overcome. And I learned to pivot in the marathon and got really gritty. And just had to deal with that. But the good news is that, like I said, if you are able to pivot and, use what's on the course, you could do what you can to the best of your ability and not mess up too much or deviate from your strategy. So yes, the back half of the course was a little tough for me. Mental and physical challenges. I was just winging everything on the fly the back half of the race because I just didn't have what I needed hydration wise. And I knew that I could hold on, but I didn't know for how long because the sun started coming out. There was 2 big hairpin turn out and backs. Again, great course, but the sun was on one side and it was just getting hot. That's a good way to put it. I missed my dad at miles 10 and 19, and I was thinking oh my gosh, something must have happened. But I really just was in it, and I was there was nothing stopping me from conquering this race. So I did what I could. Like I said, relied on the Pocari Sweat, was still taking my gels, I hung on to a 6:40 pace, picked it up to 6:30s, dropped to 6:50s, but was a metronome, taking off the miles. And after mile 19, when I really didn't see my dad with a handheld that I really needed, I was okay, we really have to leverage the course hydration. So I was taking Pocari Sweat, which I really don't like. I don't think a lot of us do. I didn't have any salt tabs on me anymore at that point, and water, and then my gels. So pivoting. I relied, on grit, through the last 10K of the race. The first 5K of the last 10K was all in the shade. The second half was in the sun. So imagine, oh my God, it was a big hairpin turn. It was kind of cool seeing people on the other side, especially like the elites, like galloping, kind of like gave me some yeah, but I've really used mental toughness to focus on what I could do in every single step. And yeah, I just kind of felt like something was with me on the course. I didn't even know what was really like going on outside of it. I'm about to get there in a second. But yeah, I was just very, very focused, and I knew going into mile 24, I was like, hey, looking at the overall elapsed time, if I could hold a certain pace, I'm going to come close to a PR. And like, so that became the A goal for that day, not the 252 anymore. Yes, it was real tough. So really what carried me and what I was thinking about, like that last 5K stretch, was every single reason why I love to run, every single person that I coach, every single other person out there going through the same thing, my family, the fact that I love to run for mental health, stress relief. Hi, Pamela, you know, all the things, like the reasons why we love to run. It's like so good for us. You know, I brought myself back to all of those reminders, and also, you know, all of that hard training that I had done. And I love training, right? But like Charmy, you might be on here, we love goals too. And so it's important to not put so much pressure on one race, but it's also important to, you know, not give up on yourself in the moment you're in. And that's what I did not do. I didn't give up on myself. And so even though I had to tweak some things, I leveraged the crowd's energy, and I even was like, let's go, like, let's hear it, because yeah, things just got real in that moment. And so it was an adventure. So I did finish with a PR, 2 hours and 57 minutes and 31 seconds. And it was a really special time. I was like kind of tearing up at the end, because I was just, again, so happy that I had finished my 4th consecutive sub-3 marathon strong. And even though there was all these things like going against me, like not having hydration, there was so much going for me. And so, yeah, it was just a blessing. It was a blessing. It truly was. Unfortunately, I don't really want to talk too much about this because I don't want to get emotional, and this will more be in my written recap. But I learned that the reason why my dad was not on the course is because during the race, he got a phone call that my grandmother had passed away, and I found this out literally right when I finished the marathon, and just kind of lost it. But, you know, at the same time was like so appreciative that I was able to be there with my dad, and just to have this silver lining of like having this wonderful marathon experience on also like a tragic day for my family. And so there was a silver lining in all of that. I'm kind of at a loss of words for that, but like, you know, case in point, not to like get too down here. This is okay. Everything's okay. And also this really like captures like why running is so much more than like just doing it for ourselves. It allows us to, you know, tackle and overcome obstacles, even though we might not know them at the time. I'm convinced I had an angel on my shoulder with me on Sunday, because, you know, I was struggling, but I was fighting. I also know that like all the people around me were doing the same. And I hope that I was also inspiring the spectators on the course to like, you know, maybe like say, hey, I want to do a marathon, or hey, I want to run for stress relief, or something of that sort. And all my running friends, all of you on here, all my athletes, just I hope that, you know, what I did was a testament to like what you could do in the worst conditions when you're faced, but how you could pivot and make the best of that day, of that step, of that mile that you're in. And you could choose to give up, and you could also choose to keep going, and we keep going, right, in life through the good and the bad. So not getting too life coachy here, but yes, that. So all around The course was awesome. Thank you, Cliff. The course was awesome. It was a really fun time. Again, you know, there was actually like a few rollers in there, but it was a pretty flat course. And if you look at the elevation chart, it holds true. I hope that for any of you going, you get better race conditions, meaning in terms of like the weather, just because it makes it easier to run a marathon, especially PR1. Again, I know that for like the 3 hour and 30 minute marathoners and like 4 hour marathoners, I had 2 athletes that they ran out of water cups and they were telling them to drink out of their hands. That's absolutely ridiculous. It makes me like angry. And yes, I hope that allows the world majors to make it okay for people to use handhelds. But yeah, that's up to them to decide. I think that if you are someone who is looking to PR at a marathon, maybe a smaller domestic marathon closer to home might be a better choice for you, for any of us, just because there's more things that we could control, like all these things, making sure we have handheld, not the weather, but the time change too. All right, so the crowd was electric. One of my favorite things was this guy from Dubai, like running next to me, and he's like, F these rollers. And then he's like, let's go, girl. And I'm like, I'm going. But like, yeah, it was super electric. I was very, very focused on form. And one thing I said to myself, like, I'm quoting this, I get to effing do this. I'm running the Tokyo effing marathon, one on earth, a dream. My body's resilient, strong. My mind is fierce as a cheetah, and we're pressing the gas hard. And I would like just say to myself, stay. It's one of my favorite mantras. So yeah, overall, there's a lot of room for improvement. Again, I think that it lived up to the hype. It was an incredible race. Yeah, it was awesome. You know, I think that just being able to find the silver lining in any race, 5K to marathon, it's a blessing. Yeah. So all that being said, post-race, my snack and meal consisted of rice balls, again from 7-Eleven, and then I went to go get Thai food or Japanese food, like delicious tofu. What else did we have? Dim sum, which I don't really eat because I don't eat pork, but I did that day. Rice, dumplings, yeah. We had some other stuff, but yeah, it was all delicious. I was with my dad and my friend Jamie, and also I feel like I'm recovering very well right now, and I'm giving a huge testament to my training for that, my hydration and my nutrition strategy for that. But yeah, those 11 Morton gels did something. My legs feel great, so again, that's a testament to all of the consistency leading up to this, like getting that consistent daily sleep. Hydrating with electrolytes, like even on my running rest days, eating at the same frequency throughout the day, meaning like every 2 hours, eating carbs, proteins, and fats, the same kinds of foods. Final thoughts and takeaways. You know, what I learned is that, you know, smaller marathons are where you could consistently, like, you know, get yourself on the time zone sooner, make sure that you're allowed to like have all of the things that you've trained with. Yeah. And a learning experience that I took also from this race was what I could accomplish with such little hydration, knowing that a 2 hour and 57 minute marathon was my baseline now versus like what I know I can do. And so I hope that just shows you and explains to you that like, even if you're up against these conditions, actually any marathon is a great way to learn so much about yourself and what you're capable of, so that you could go back to the drawing board, look at where things like might have not been optimal for you and adjust. So moving forward, you set yourself up for success for all the things ahead. Mile, 5K, 10K, half, marathon. Yeah, so I gave advice for you future Tokyo runners in the beginning. But yeah, you know, a coaching tip I would give is, practice your fueling during your training. Practice foods that you could eat internationally, and if not, that's okay. Really just try to get on the time zone there a week early, especially going to Tokyo, because it's like 14 hours from New York and 17 from San Diego. And in between Midwesterners, you already know. So yeah, that's that. And I hope that you just also you're able to use your tools from your toolbox when things don't go your way. So if you're not able to use the hydration on the course, what you've used throughout your training when you maybe bonked during certain runs, or maybe tried different hydration strategies or fuel during certain runs. And yeah, I think that's all important. And also just to enjoy the experience and to not let anything take that away from you. Not the clock, not the time, just to enjoy the day, because truly the now is all we have. And I say this all the time, I'm going to say it again. Every starting line and every finish line is a win, regardless of the time. There is no pace too slow. I absolutely love the fact that marathons are literally the only sport that we can line up with the pro runners. How freaking cool. The barrier to entry is low, and I love that. It's a blessing, and it's amazing seeing all types of runners go to the marathon, hopefully prepared, and being able to putting yourselves out there. It's such a hard thing to do. And I love that. So yeah, as for me, right now I'm taking time to just relish in this feeling, and I look forward to working on the shorter stuff before I go back up to the marathon, which will probably be next year. But yeah, I hope you guys took some pointers from here. And again, I'll be sharing my written race recap once the pictures come out. I'm waiting for them very patiently. And on my blog. So, stay tuned for that. But you guys are kind of quiet on here, and I know it's the middle of the workday for a lot of us, but wanted to hop on here and share this because I wrote it all out and it's fresh on my mind, and there's a lot to say about this one. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all, and if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments under this live. And other than that, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.